Such a crowd this early in the morning, so this is quite exciting for us. Thank you. I'm going to talk about the market kit in school. A child with hyperactivity diagnosis, and I'll take you through some of the difficulties this child might go on to experience. Now, in the hyperactivity and impulsivity subtype, children have problems with their self-control, and they have an inability to control their behaviors, and this uncontrolled behavior, of course, starts to gather attention from others, and after a while the kid is marked, is stigmatized. And we can also talk about deficit in inhibition as part of this. In the last decade, there has been an increase in studies that have to do with stigma, and especially it's come to the forefront in psychiatric health. Prejudices and discrimination, of course, are two situations in which you have an increased stigma effect. Children with ADHD and their relationships with their peers is not that much studied. One such study actually looked into willingness to engage in activities with peers, and the study has two short stories were explained to children participating in the study as to how a child with ADHD would behave. And I'd like to read this partly, because it says Taylor is in your class, extrovert, intelligent, but cannot get good marks because doesn't finish homework in time and doesn't finish exams in time. And teachers say that she loses her attention quickly, in class talks to classmates, makes a lot of mistakes in homeworks, the handwriting is poor, and children or friends say that she switches from one activity to another, but it's fun to play with her. At home, she has a room which is untidy, and the family complains of her losing her stuff all the time. Teachers of Taylor, friends, and others say that she's a good swimmer. That's the end of the first story. The second story, Taylor is in your class, extrovert and social. Intelligent, always gets either an A or B, doesn't finish homework in time. Teachers say that she speaks during class, but generally she's good. Although she has attention mistakes, she completes her homework, and although not always, sometimes she starts speaking very loud without asking for the floor first. And the friends find her amusing and entertaining. Again, friends, teacher, and family say that she is a good swimmer. So a softer description this time around. And when the attitude of peers towards ADHD children were examined, what was found was that in social preferences this did not create a difference, but academically speaking they have a more negative attitude towards children with ADHD. In those without ADHD, they actually want to engage in more activities with those without ADHD. The level of stigmatization is found to be higher in the east of the country, where education level is slightly lower, and it's also been demonstrated or made, the point has been made that children with ADHD and autism need to be assessed and evaluated separately. This is a 2009 study from Florida about stigma associated with ADHD. And they've adapted this scale from another one. The questions are about experiences with individuals with ADHD, how they behave towards these individuals, etc. The attitude of the environment, negative self-perception, and increased stigma perception have shown to be interconnected, and when assessing the symptoms, these were paid attention to, especially in adolescent ADHD. There's an increased stigma perception, and this in turn leads to a reduction in the help-seeking behavior by adolescents. So what kinds of behaviors can cause stigma? Harming harming behavior, certain changes in peer relations, adherence to school rules, relationships with children, with students, their interest to substances, and other comorbid situations can play a role in stigma. Now let's have a look at each of these. Harming behavior. When we say harming behavior, this can be hyperactivity related behavior, running, jumping, taking risky actions, or being careless overall and acting without thinking about the consequences. A drop in self-esteem, frequent criticism and warnings by family and friends and teachers, and when there's also excluding behavior from the friends in order to protect oneself from the outside world, they can go ahead and have certain arms or certain other tools to protect themselves. One of the most important components in peer relations is that lack of empathy, and since they lack empathy, constantly contrarupt the other parties and display similar behaviors, they can be excluded by their friends. They can have impulsivity related issues, not abiding by the rules of a game, not being able to wait for one's turn, quick mood turns, fast driving, and risky sexual behavior can ensue. And in a lot of instances, they simply get the blame for things they have not necessarily done. Now, abiding by school rules can mean not sitting down, interrupting other people, speaking when not allowed, and in situations when they need to wait in line, such as in the cafeteria, not being able to do so, daydreaming during classes, and sometimes just skipping classes. When it comes to their relationship with teachers, they require constant intervention and warnings. Therefore, there might be need for these kinds of interventions to get class behavior right. And the counseling service is a frequent place to go for them. They may forget their homework, not bring it from home, or not really be able to find their homework. Again, in circumstances where responsibility is required, collecting others' homeworks, others' notebooks, etc., since this kind of behavior is not really developed properly, they may require assistance from friends. We know that in ADHD, the risk of abuse or dependence is actually higher, 6.2 or so times higher, and the common feature of these substances is the fact that they activate the reward system. Although different substances have different effects, their common area, as it were, is the fact that they activate pleasure pathways or systems, and of course individuals have pleasure in using these substances. In children with low self-control, and if there is a problem with the inhibition systems in the brain, then the tendency is even higher. From a developmental point of view, reward system is mature towards middle age, and around the age of 20 the prefrontal cortex is still maturing as regards this issue, and the earlier substance abuse starts, the earlier the risk of developing addiction. And in adults, addiction incidences tend to go down, and it has been linked to the maturing process of the prefrontal cortex. Let's have a look at comorbid situations. These result in an increase in reactions against the child. The most frequent one is opposition disorder, concern disorders, and behavioral disorders. The percentages you see. Substance abuse, alcohol abuse, again, make the ADHD symptoms more marked. Sleep disorders, mood disorders, autistic spectrum disorder can also accompany and make it all more severe. Again, personality disorders can be listed among comorbid situations. This is a general description of stigma, and we know, of course, what stigma is. According to Erickson, stigmatization may leads to a less developed personality, and it prevents the whole development of the individual, of the personality. The teachers, of course, play a key role in this, and teachers' tendency to stigmatize children is also very crucial for us, because it can lead to very harmful consequences in the formation of identities of children. And in psychiatric patients, of course, stigma has been discussed for many, many years. When it comes to stigma and psychiatric issues in ADHD, prejudices and discrimination are two other fields in which you have studies. Now, it was in 1994 that Stein did the first study in stigma perception in children with ADHD, and I'll go ahead and show it to you as follows. And as far as there's stigmatizing prejudice to ADHD, their adherence to treatment goes down, and as when the stigma perception of the child goes down, adherence to therapy increases and the outcomes are improved. When it comes to the lack of self-esteem, it is mainly because they think that they might have to take medication every day for the rest of their lives, but in other circumstances this has been shown not to be in connection with the diagnosis or the negative remarks of others. Now, the stigmatization of children by the authorities is also an important point. The success expectation of teachers has an impact on the appearance, the outer appearance and behavior of children has an impact on them. The way in which they are referred to the counseling service in school can also be stigmatizing if they're taken outside the classroom, for instance, in front of everyone. The extra demands asked for children with ADHD can sometimes not be accommodated by teachers, and extra demands such as being seated in the first row, sometimes being warned, etc. Opposition disorder or aggressive behavior, or in other cases which have an impact on peers, social relations are impaired and more aggressive types of behavior, ADHD-related behavior, can occur, and this, of course, further boosts the negative perception of teachers. Girls with ADHD are less tolerated generally amongst teachers. There are certain opinions, at least to this point. Now, as a summary, I can say the following. Social issues, problems with close friends and social adaptation problems increase risk. It reduces self-esteem, adherence to therapy, and of course the effectiveness of therapy. And I would like to thank you for your attention. This was the end of my presentation.
Thank you for keeping up with the video time frame.